Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. My name is Dr. Kitiana Lowe, and I am the Program and Events Consultant with Webeck ORV. And we are excited to have you all with us today. And today we are doing Develop an Effective Capability Statement. That's our workshop today. And we are excited to have Karen Wyville, who is the Associate Director of Central Ohio Apex Accelerator at Ohio University. That is a mouthful. We're excited to have her back. She facilitated this workshop for us last year, and we got rave reviews. And it's really, really important for our WBEs. And so we thank you, Karen, for joining us today and for just the wealth of knowledge that you're going to bring to the table for us today. So before I turn it over to Karen, I just want to do a quick introduction for those that may not know everyone on the team. Our fearless leader, Lanice Smith, is our Executive Director and CEO. I'm sure you're all familiar with the certification team, which is led by Colleen Rudisill and includes both Robbie Moore as well as Angela Ruff. And then we have Catherine Macon, who is our Manager of Marketing and Communications. So we are a small but mighty team and are excited to see all that we have to offer you all today. So without further ado, Karen, you can take it away.
Thank you, Katiana. I appreciate you inviting me here today, and I'm hoping I can help you all figure out your capability statement. It's been my experience that a lot of my small business owners are amazing at what they can do, but they often struggle about putting a capability statement together and how to communicate how amazing they are. So hopefully this will help you a little bit on that today. If you want to go ahead in the next slide. So what we're going to be discussing about what is a capability statement, what the uses are of a capability statement, the various elements, and what you can do to make sure your capability statement stands out in the crowd. Next slide. Okay. First of all, the definition of a capability statement. It is the government preferred marketing piece. It serves as your door opener for your business when you're talking to not just government agencies, but prime contractors. It's utilized when they're doing market research out there on, are there any small woman-owned small businesses out there that can help us? And oftentimes you're going to see solicitations when you're responding to a notice from the government. They're going to ask for a copy of your capability statement. So having something good and ready to represent your company is very important. Next slide. Okay, so the elements of a capability statement. Number one, you're going to want to call it a capability statement. So make sure you have that terminology on your sheet. And then it's got to have 4 important sections. One is core competencies. One is past performance. One is differentiators. And the last, company data. And we'll go over all of this here on the next few slides. Next slide. Okay. Calling it a capability statement in your header is very important. But the other important thing is make it look like your marketing. Include your company logo. If you've got your website and your other corporate marketing materials and your business card, make sure you capture that same look for your capability statement. Make sure you always include your business name, your business address, and your website so they can go there and look for more information on your business. Next slide. There are sections. You're going to have these as a headline section. You're going to have core competencies. Core competencies, in essence, is the section that tells people what exactly you do. You're going to focus on what your company does best, and you're going to target your competencies to the audience you're giving it to. Now, obviously, if it's a general, you're going to capability statement you have used for your general marketing, you're going to have a lot of things on there, but the thing with a capability statement is you can customize it. So you want to make sure if you're marketing to a specific organization or government agency that your competencies that you list match what you're going after. You don't want to put information they could care less about. You want to make sure when you're talking about what your business does, you're going to be very brief and specific. Focus on the keywords that'll stand out on what your competencies are. And I recommend using bullet points. You can bold certain keywords, make it easy for them to find the information you're looking for. I know I used to be a writer and I hate hearing short bullet points, but truly it makes it easier on the reader to find that key information. Don't write a big paragraph that makes them search for the information that they're looking for. Use bullet points. Next slide. You're going to have a past performance section. Again, make a headline for that section and call it past performance. In your past performance, you're going to want a brief description of some contracts or works that you've done that match the work that you're going after. Make sure you provide a very brief description of exactly what you did. Put the name of the client that you did it for. And if you can provide contact information, provide their contract information. Again, make sure the past performance matches the work that you're going after. If you've done work that doesn't match, they don't care. They want to see that you have past performance, you have the experience. Proof is in the pudding. You have the experience to do what you say you can do, and that you can do what they need done. So providing all that information gives them those facts and the evidence that you are good at what you do and you've done it successfully. And here's who you've done it for. Next slide. So here's an example of how this is just a suggestion. You don't have to use this, but of how I would say you did work as a prime contractor. This meaning you did work for this government agency directly. So you provided these types of services. And you save this much money, or you save this much time, you did it for this long. If it had a contract number within the government, give the contract number, the dollar volume, and here's the contact information. Again, they're trying to see that you can do the work that you say you could do, what kind of scope it was, how big a project you can take on by looking what your past performance has been. So this is you doing it directly as a prime contractor for a government agency. And that could be any government agency, federal, state, or local. Next slide. Now, let's say you did the work, but you were a subcontractor. Spell it out. Say that you were a subcontractor to this company and that you provided these services as part of this, as a subcontractor. And this was the breadth of what you did for this larger contract. And then give the name here for your prime. Or perhaps you want to give, if you had a good relationship at the government agency, you could do that too. Next slide. Now, let's say you're brand new, starting out, and you had a lot of work experience, doing a lot of expertise in your past work life, but you haven't had any contracts under your business belt. Here's an example of how you can talk about how you had that expertise in doing it as an employee. Always let them know that you did it as an employee of whatever company. So they're not looking for the name of your company in a past performance somewhere. You did it as an employee, as you. Next slide. So again, what not to use. If the project doesn't relate to what you're going after, then don't use it because they don't care. Let's say you're going after a construction contract and you've also done janitorial. You don't include janitorial experience for a construction contract because they don't care. And then if you've got a reference, make sure the reference is still with the firm or the agency or the company that you're listing. If they're no longer there, don't include their name and at all, because it's a dead end for the company doing the research. Next slide. Now, this is the section that I find companies struggle with the most, and it's differentiators. So differentiators, again, I said companies are so good at what they do, but they have sometimes a hard time struggling and communicating that. So differentiators is what sets you apart. It's the unique features and benefits of your products or your services that set you apart. Why should they buy products or services from your company? You need to let them know how awesome you are and what you do. Next slide. So these are some thinking points that I give to my clients to get them started. By no means an exhaustive list, But some ways for you to think about. You have a current customer, your biggest customer, and they come back to you over and over and over again. Why? Why do they come back? If you don't know, ask them. There's a reason they're coming back to you over and over and over again. That is a differentiator. That's what's setting you apart. That's a strength that your company has. Again, do some deep thinking. Why is your company the best choice? What is it, the products or services that make you stand out from the rest? Is it warranties? Is it whatever? What is it about your people that give you the advantage over your competitors? Do your employees have special certifications or a special education or something like that that other companies just don't expect? Do your products offer better solutions? Are they industry leading? Do you offer better warranties? Last but not least, it could be that your business is just located closer to the targeted agency, so your response time is much better than some of your competition. It's just some things for you to think about. Next slide. Okay. Differentiators. What makes you different from your competition, and why does it benefit the buyer? Again, they're looking to you to solve a problem. So you want to know and highlight how you are this awesome problem solver for them. So when you're talking about these differentiators, again, as a former writer, I hate to say this, but don't write a novel. Make it short and to the point. Use bullet points. Focus on what problems you're reading when they put the solicitation out there. What are their needs? And focus on how you solve those needs. Highlight the benefits of using you to your customer and be very specific. Next slide is going to show you, I think, some things I put in there. You don't want to put generalities in there. And this is the biggest pet peeve that I see. Differentiators are not that you're a woman-owned small business. I say you're so now it's a benefit, but it's not why they're going to use your business necessarily. I call the certification that sprinkles on the cupcake. If you're offering a really terrible tasting, awful cupcake, no matter how many sprinkles, they're not going to want to eat it. So they're not going to want to buy it. So we're going to talk about where you put your socioeconomic certifications elsewhere. Here's where you're going to provide those specifics and not the general marketing speak. And I've seen lots of these where they say they're best in class, they're industry leader, outstanding customer service, quality committed. What does that mean? You're best in class. What does that mean? How are you best in class? Have you won awards? Are your products the top selling in the marketplace? Like industry leader, do you do cutting edge technology that no one else in your industry does? Outstanding customer service. That's something I see all the time. What does that mean? Do you have a 24/7 hotline for customer needs? Do you have a guaranteed response time? What is your customer service? What about your customer service makes it outstanding? Be specific. Quality committed. Again, anyone can say that. What's the proof that you're quality committed? Do you have a quality control plan? Are you ISO certification? Have you gone through certain quality control standard certifications that you can provide and list? Be specific. Don't use the general stuff that anyone out there can say. I give this point a lot to my clients too, where I can tell, I'm an outstanding brain surgeon. Yeah, prove it. Would you hire a doctor because he just says he's great? You want to make sure you got the proof there behind your company. Next slide. Okay. Here's where you kind of put your certifications. It's in your company data section. So your company data. If you're going and marketing to a federal buyer or a federal prime contractor, you want to make sure you put your UEID and your cage code. Now, DUNS numbers are no longer required for your SAM registration in the federal space. However, I have seen them in solicitations ask for DUNS numbers because they want to check your credit worthiness. So you can Go ahead and still list your DUNS number if you have it, but these two are absolutely mandatory, the UEID and your cage code. Then you're going to want to list any of the federal codes, which are NAICS codes, the product or federal service codes. Now, UNSPSC codes or NIGP codes, those are used by, like UNSPSC is used by the state of Ohio. Some local government agencies use NAICS codes, some use NIGP codes, some still are using SIC codes. If you're going to put the codes on your capability statement and you're targeting it, make sure you put the codes that that agency utilizes. If you have a long-term contract, let's say you're a GSA contract holder, or you've got a blanket purchase agreement with the state or local government or federal government, list it. And then here's where you're going to list your federal certifications too. Are you WSB, EDOSB, a small business? Do you also have 8A or HUBZone? If you're state of Ohio or other locals, are you like a minority business enterprise? Are you a WE with local government entities? You can list your local government entities. Again, those codes and certifications vary by agency, so tailor it to your market that you're utilizing your capability statement to gain entry into. Next slide. So again, your company data, you can also put a short summary. Again, short. A little, just a short little paragraph. Some of the things you can talk about, how long you've been in business, your financial position. If it's something, you know, talking about the size of your staff, just something really short. And make sure always, always, always put someone's name at your company who's going to be responsible for the government contracting efforts, their direct email address, and if they have a direct phone number, include that as well. A lot of times I see capability statements and folks forget to put that on there. They like to have a person's name, not just info at. They like to have a person's name that they can reach out to get some questions answered if they're interested in you. Next slide. Okay, here's where I talk about appearances. Now, you don't need to be a professional graphic designer to make a good capability statement. But these are some things, words of wisdom when you're putting it together. Again, utilizing bullet points and those headers helps you make it a clean capability statement. You want to make it clean so it makes it easy for them to find the information that they need. Don't overwhelm it with too many colors and fonts. I've seen a lot of times it look really pretty, but the type was too hard to read on the color backgrounds. So it also, you know, makes it look kind of amateurish. Make good, easy, utilize good, easy to read fonts. Again, try to correlate back to your corporate marketing statements. Don't go over the top with the pretties. Make the copy again crisp to the point. Bullet points, bullet points, bullet points. Use those section headers as a way to organize it and make it more easily readable. Again, making it look like your corporate look. Never forget your include your corporate logo. And then you're going to need it in a couple of different ways. One, you're going to need to have it electronically as a PDF. So that way you can email it to folks. And oftentimes they're going to ask you to email it. And solicitation responses, they're all electronic now for the most part. You're going to have to email it to them as a PDF. PDFs are going to go through spam filters. You can't put any, they're small enough to get through emails. So always a PDF. And then also you're going to want it in print. You know, the Ohio Matchmaker is an event that happens every year in Dayton. It's going to be happening in May this year. You're going to want to, I know WeBeg has matchmakers. You're going to want to have it on paper. Print it on nice paper, not see-through, but you don't have to go over the top. I was at an event where someone handed me, it was laminated. You don't need to laminate it. That's really expensive. Just print it on nice paper. And I also say, just not see-through copy paper if you can prevent it. A little bit heavier stock. Doesn't have to be cardstock either, just something that's not easily rippable and it's going to be see-through, so it makes it easier to read again. Next slide. So here's some little helpful hints I have as you're developing your capability statement, because one thing I do want to point out, just like a resume, it's a living, breathing document. Your capability statement should change over time. So one of the hints I like to tell my clients is consider writing what I call a success story for each project that you complete. So as soon as you're done completing it and that project is fresh in your mind, put together a little success story. Talk about what the type of project it was, the scope, what you did, how you benefited the client, dollar amount, contact information, and keep a library of those success stories organized by project type on your computer. So when you need to customize your capability statement to whoever you're reaching out to, it's easier for you to find those past performance narratives to pull into your capability statement. The other thing is a lot of times also when you're responding to a solicitation, they might even have a bigger past performance questionnaire that they're going to ask you about. You've got that library right there that you can pull in and help you, not just on your capability statement, but also on responding to RFPs or requests for quotes from the government. You've got that library of successes that you can pull with the typical information that they ask for. And again, don't waste time also when you're marketing, make sure you do your market research on who you're reaching out to. Know what they do. So when you're presenting your capability statement, it answers their needs. Don't waste their time. It doesn't give them a good impression of you if you don't know about who you're talking to, and give them information that they could care less about. Next slide. Now I was talking about RFPs and things. There's another use of capability statements is sources sought notices on the federal government side on sam.gov. You're going to get asked for capability statements numerous times, almost all the time on the sources sought. They're going to ask you for a capability statement. Sometimes it's just a general capability statement. Again, you're going to want to tailor it to that, what they're looking for. But sometimes they can be very specific. And I've had clients make the mistake that they just sent their generic capability statement in response to a sources sought notice without reading through it. So if you see a sources sought notice that you're wanting to use your capability statement for, make sure you read through that notice and read through it carefully so that the capability statement that you present to them matches their requirements. You may need to create a uniquely designed one, and I have a couple examples on the next slide, just because I've been seeing a few clients make this mistake lately, and so I wanted to touch on it here. So these were a couple of examples I read through recently on sam.gov where they're asking some very specific things. One was a request for quote, and they wanted a capability statement. But in that capability statement, they were asking for that you must provide a description of how your capability meet or exceed current industry standards. That is a very specific thing. If you don't have it in your capability statement, you're not being responsive and you're not giving them a good impression of your company. Now, this next one was something, it was a sources sought notice for a lot more involved kind of, it wasn't like, it wasn't going to be just a product, it was being a service. And they were asking for a much more detailed than a one-page capability statement. Even though they were calling it a sources sought capability statement, it was actually, look at this, they wanted 12, not to exceed 12 pages in specific font. So your generic capability statement, if you were to submit it to that, it wouldn't match. So always make sure you're reading through what they're required in their capability statement request. Next slide. This is a little bit about us. Apex Accelerators, we are located across the country. We are funded by the Department of Defense Office of Small Business Programs. For me here in Ohio, we also get funding from the state of Ohio, and for my office for the Central Ohio region, also from Ohio University. All of that means we get all this grant funding to provide our services to you at no cost because it's prepaid with your tax dollars. We do it through free one-on-one client appointments and group trainings, and we work with tremendous partners throughout the state of Ohio and across the country, like WeBank and supporting us here today. Next slide. This is my contact information. Again, my name's Karen Wyville. We have offices throughout the state. And again, we're located across the country. This is just my contact information. Our website, if you decide you want to be a client of ours, again, that's where you would have to register. But that's the end of my presentation, and now I guess I'll just open it up to anybody if anybody has any questions.
Thank you so very much, Karen. Let me stop sharing my screen so we can all see better here. So we did have a couple of questions in the chat. The first one says, if your reference is no longer at the company, should you still list that company, should you still list that experience at all?
All right, if it is necessary, if that is where your experience is, even if your contact is in there, you could still list that you did that work. I would just say, just don't put their name and contact info. And one thing I did forget to match, they usually want you to go back no more than 3 to 5 years on your past performance. But if, take a look at, if you absolutely need, go ahead and list it, just don't put their contact info.
Thank you. And then the second question that's in the chat, if your reference is at a different company and is still willing to provide a reference for you in their new role, is that okay to list?
I would just make sure you talk to your reference and that they can explain that they're no longer at the company, but they worked with you when you're performing on that contract at that company.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. Let's go ahead and open the floor. Oh, one more in the chat.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, okay. This is what I recommend, and this is why I recommend one page. And here's my reason why. They get a lot of these. And if the vital information about your company, about your past performance, your differentiators, your codes is on page 2, and they don't see it on page 1, they might just flip it and not ever see how amazing you are. Caveats to that, sometimes I say, like, if you say let's say you're a product reseller and you can put like you sell industrial supply company, industrial supply products. On page 2, you might want to list the types of products, but that vital information that sells them on how great your business is and how to deal with, try to put it on page 1 so they don't miss it. Because I've seen too many of them, if they don't see it on the first page when they're scanning it, next. Hope that answers.
yes, perfect. Next question in the chat. In the past performance section, if you've provided an ongoing service at your clients that doesn't have a defined project scope, is there a good way to communicate that?
Well, I guess what would that mean? I'm obviously you're hired to do something.
Amy, do you want to come off mute and clarify a little bit for us?
Sure. So we provide employer of record or payrolling services. It's kind of under the scope of temporary staffing, but a little bit different.
Just explain that. And if you have an ongoing contract and it doesn't have an end date, say that you've got this active contract providing these types of services.
Okay.
And you could even say, and other related services as needed.
And sorry, one follow-up question on that. Would it be helpful to share like the annual spend so they know how large some of the programs are that we support?
Yeah.
Okay.
That again, you're trying to show your capacity on how large a project you can handle. If you've only had contracts that are, $500,000 in scope and it's a $5 million contract, but if you can handle something like that, you need to show how big a project you can handle.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Do you recommend simple formatting so that PDFs are easily readable by automatic computer programs like resumes are?
I have not heard of any government buyers using AI on these. They usually have an eye on it. I don't know about corporates, and maybe you could answer that, but it's usually an eye on it. But again, that's why I recommend that one page with the project headings and the necessary information within the project headings, or the core competencies, the differentiators, the past performance, utilization of bullet points, the correct codes, easy to read. I may be wrong. I haven't heard any of the government buyers that I've talked to. I mean, I've even sat in on some reviews for companies and we didn't use AI, we read it.
Perfect. What other questions do you have for those who are on the call? You can put it in the chat or you can come off mute and ask the question. Either way is fine.
And I have a lot of glare now. I apologize. The sun's fitting me full on now.
Let's see. I don't see anything else, but I don't want to rush people. So let me share my screen again. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our upcoming events that we have here at WeBack ORV. And while we're doing that, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or raise your hand and then we'll come back to those questions. So just a couple of events that we have coming up. I can't believe that I'm saying that it's the end of February, but it is already the end of February. So February 28th, we have Doing Business with the University of Kentucky. Our Doing Business series with our corporate partners is a really great opportunity to come and sit at their feet, I will say, and learn how to do business with those different corporate partners that we're working with. So on the 28th, we have the University of Kentucky, and you'll see on the 13th of March, we have the Federal Home Loan Bank of Cincinnati. So two really great corporate partners. We would love to see you all come and check out those workshops. And then on March 6th is actually our very first WBE luncheon of 2024. If you were with WeBack ORV prior to COVID, you'll be a little bit familiar with these. We have not done them since COVID, so we are super excited to bring them back. These are limited. We're limited to 30 seats, and these seats are going fast. So if you are a certified WBE, which all of you are here that are represented, you can find all of our events on our website. So if you go to webackorv.org and then go to our events page, you will see the calendar and you can click on the calendar. It'll take you to the registration page. The Blossom and Thrive is really a workshop focusing on self-care, fashion and self-care. We've got a really great WBE who's going to be spending some time with us sharing about how to upgrade your own personal wardrobe with things that are already in your closet. And we are doing a raffle for 2 WBEs to actually have an on-site styling session with her. So we're really excited about those. And then definitely save the date if you do not already have it on your calendar. August 26th through the 28th is Catch the Wave 2024. This year is our 15th anniversary, so we're super excited about that. And Catch the Wave will be in Cincinnati, Ohio this year. Emily, I do see you raising your hand. I'm going to go to one more slide and then we'll go to you. For those who are not watching this on your phone, please take out your phone and scan this QR code and go ahead and complete the survey for us. For those of you who may be watching this on your phone, you will get a follow-up email by tomorrow. All of you will get a follow-up email by tomorrow that will have not only the link to the survey, as well as the presentation and the recording from the presentation. Emily, go ahead and come off mute. You can go ahead and ask your question.
Thanks so much. Karen, thanks so much for your insight and all the great tips. I have a question regarding past performance. So AST, Advanced Shipping Technologies, is a third-party logistics company, but we do a lot of unique projects with some government contracting, some things that are held within some pretty tight NDAs.
Okay.
So I always get nervous about putting past performance data because I don't know like what I can disclose and still honor customer confidentiality. And then also the concern is, you know, if that information is floating around, you don't really want to like show all your cards to possible competitors too. So does that make sense?
Yeah, so if you're handing out your capability statement, you're handing it to a government agency. Obviously, if you have an NDA, double check with that government agency that you aren't allowed. If you're not allowed to list it, you're not allowed to give the specifics because of the NDA. You might want to say that you currently have a contract with a government agency providing these services without providing all the information that you're obligated not to provide with your NDA. Check with the contracting agency on what you might be able to state. Typically, when you're handing these out, they're not handing it out to everybody, right? You're handing it out to the government buyer or the prime contractor. You're not sharing it with your competition. They're not posting it with the competition. So And once you get a government contract, it's pretty much public knowledge anyway, unless it's like top secret stuff and they don't list it, but
Yeah,
hopefully that helps.
yes,
Yeah.
that is. And then that's what I've done in the past. I've just sort of been vague about, like vague enough to respect the NDA and keep it within the boundaries, but then also providing enough insight to say what the service is.
Yeah, I've had a few folks that have had that. It was corporate. One of their corporate clients wouldn't allow them to talk about the work that they had done there. So we just said, well, did work for a major corporation providing this and didn't provide the details, but could we find other similar work where you didn't have those restrictions?
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Awesome. Well, I would just like, if anybody, if you're in Ohio and you want help with your capability statement, we provide free assistance. I help my clients with that every day. All you got to do is register as a client with Apex Accelerator, and it's all free.
Yes, and I'm going to put Karen's slide with her information back up here on the screen. So if you did not get a chance to catch it when she was going through it, that way you can take a quick screenshot. As I mentioned, this presentation is going to be sent out to you via email, so you will have it via email as well. And that email should go out by tomorrow.